Okay, welcome once again. Our third topic in BCP 2208, conflict resolution. The third topic is the conflict process. As usual, I'm your facilitator, Miss Linda Nakalawa. It makes me feel like these news readers. I don't know if some of you were old enough at the time that gentleman was reading announcements on radio. Anyway, so the conflict process is what we are going to look at over the next session. So the conflict process consists of 5 stages, and we are going to go through each of them, and these show how conflict begins, how it grows, and how it unfolds among individuals or groups. And we know that conflict happens because these groups or individuals have different goals or interests or values, and it is summarized in the figure below. Okay, so take a deep breath and first relax. Okay, I know some of you, when you see figures, you start trying to cram how you will be able to reproduce it. If you take a breath and first come with me on this journey, you will realize that it is not something that you actually need to cram. So we are talking about the 5 stages. Let me do something here so that I can highlight as I go along. Okay, so you have here the stages. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and stage 5. We say that there are 5 stages that show how conflict develops, how it grows, how it plays out. So the stages are: stage 1 is the potential opposition or incompatibility. Incompatibility means that these things or these people cannot really be put together in peace. And stage 1 is about potential opposition, the things that exist before conflict breaks out. Okay, so at stage 1, there is potential for conflict, but it hasn't actually happened. Then at stage 2, there is cognition and personalization. With stage 2, conflict is beginning to develop. And in a little while, we shall see what cognition, we know it has to deal with minds or perceptions, and personalization. You people are very good at saying, don't take things personal. And we laughed a bit in the introduction to conflict about how people said, don't take things personal, yet they intend for you to take it personal and get very annoyed. Stage 3 looks at the intentions that people have when it comes to dealing with conflict. But these are intentions, not actual behavior. Behavior, the things that we observe, comes in at stage 4, right here. And sometimes there's a difference between intentions and behavior. Okay, and then we have stage 5, which is the outcomes. With whatever behavior has gone on in stage 4, the conflict process goes on to show what are the outcomes, what are the things that come out of all that conflict behavior. So that the 5 stages: stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. From the potential for conflict before conflict happens, all the way through the conflict happening and what have you, and the final outcomes. Okay, now let's look at this area, the boxes in blue. You will see that each of these lines up with the different stages. Okay, so let us look at stage 1 again. At stage 1, we said that there are things that can lead, that have the potential to lead to conflict, but conflict has not yet happened. These are what we call the antecedent conditions. Antecedent has to do with before something happens, something that sets the stage, in this case for conflict to happen. We are going to look at them in a little bit more detail. It might be communication, structure, or personal variables. Potential for conflict, or the antecedent conditions that lead to conflict, give way to stage 2, which we said is cognition and perception. Cognition has to do with perceived conflict, and personalization has to do with felt conflict. And we are going to see what each of these mean in a little while. When we go to stage 3, we have intentions. And under that, we have the different conflict handling intentions that people might have. And these are the ones that we are looking at here. And we are going to look at them in more detail. Stage 3 will give way to stage 4. We said that is the behavior, the overt conflict that we see here. Overt means observable. It is clear, anyone can see it. It has behavior, one party's behavior, and it has the other party's reaction. And finally state that this behavior will give rise to outcomes, which is stage 5. And conflict, we are going to see it will either lead to increased group performance, that is the outcome, or decreased group performance. Okay, so 5 stages. Conflict is progressing from stage 1 to stage 5. And then we are going to look at all these different aspects under each of the stages. I encourage you not to spend so much time worrying about, okay, how do I cram all this and put it in my head, to understanding the flow chart and the examples that we are going to look at. You'll find it much easier if you take a deep breath and stop yourself from panicking, okay, and asking yourself, how do I present this? How do I cram this to present it in the exam? Okay, so let us look at each of these a bit more closely. Stage 1 looks at potential for conflicts. Where do I put this so that it doesn't disturb us? Potential, opposition, or incompatibility. This is the first step in the conflict process, and it's the presence of conditions that create opportunities for conflict to develop. They are known as antecedent conditions. Remember the antecedent conditions that we looked at here in the first box, okay? And they cause or create opportunities for conflict to arise. These antecedent conditions may not lead directly to conflict, okay? But one of these conditions is necessary if conflict is to surface. The antecedent conditions might be there and conflict doesn't occur, but it does not work the other way around. Conflict cannot occur if these antecedent conditions are not in place. And these conditions have been condensed into 3 general categories. They include the way we communicate, the structure of the group that we are in, and some personal variables. Let's take a closer look at these antecedent conditions, starting with communication. With communication, we know that communication has to do with words, what is said and what is not said. There is verbal communication and there is non-verbal communication. So the words we say and the connotations, the meaning behind those words. Someone might say, I am a man. It sounds innocent enough. But when you say it in a certain context, someone's wife is asking, but Tata Junior, there's this woman who keeps calling me and says, they have your child. And then Tata Junior says, I am a man. You see how that can lead to conflict. So the connotation behind the words that we say. Jargon is like the slang, okay? Insufficient exchange of information. Insufficient exchange of information has really been a problem for a lot of couples that come into my counseling room. That he is so poor at communication, or he does not communicate. Sometimes there is noise in the communication channel, and this noise might be either physical or psychological. People are not understanding each other. If you're too heated up, you're already too angry, the communication channel will have noise of emotions because you're not calm enough to communicate properly. Noise, actually also physical noise. Someone is in the background shouting and you're not clearly understanding what the person is saying. Those are all antecedent conditions to conflict. So both too much communication as well as too little communication can cause conflict. So it needs communication needs to be balanced. But if someone is communicating too much, I don't know if you have heard about micromanagers. They pinpoint each and every step that you take. You might get frustrated and irritated, and conflict might arise. Or if there is too little communication, again, that can cause conflict. So that is it about communication as an antecedent condition to conflict. Remember, antecedent conditions mean things that are in place that might lead to conflict. The other antecedent condition that we are going to look at is structure. This is the makeup or the arrangement of an organization or a group. It might be the size of the group. If a group is too big, then there are chances of conflict. It might be the degree of specialization in the tasks. If the tasks are very highly specialized that people are involved in, okay, it might happen that everybody manages their business and they do not look at each other's business because they don't really understand it. But if there is, if I feel like I can also do what you can do, basically there is no specialization. Some people might come to conflict because of that. In my home, if a woman is in the home and the duties that she does, maybe the housemaid also feels, nae auntie chichi ansinza, I can also do these things. It might actually lead to conflict where there is disrespect. Then there is where each person's authority starts and stops. If it is clear that this is where my authority starts and this is where it stops, the chances for conflict might be less. But if it's not clear, imagine somebody who has many bosses and every boss at every level can send you. Between these bosses, there might be conflict because they don't know where one person's authority starts and the other person's authority stops. So the structure, the makeup of the organization or the group might create a stage for conflict to develop. Then we also have personal variables. Some personality types, there are those people who are highly authoritarian, who rule with an iron hand, or so dogmatic that they follow the letter. They follow everything, the rules to the letter. They might actually create conditions for conflict to occur, where people who, for them, they just told them, at this time, I close the gates. It doesn't matter who is coming in. It doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter if it was raining. This time, I'm supposed to close the gate. There, a lot of conflict might come in with the askari, for example. Or people might have different personal value systems, and this can lead to conflict. I believe a certain way, you also believe a certain way. We have different value systems, and so we might clash. We might be very good individuals. Each of us is a good person. But because of my values being different from your values, there might be conflicts. We have seen examples where parents tell their children, never bring for me a Muslim because we are Catholic. Never bring for me a born again because we are Muslim. The people might be really, really good, but sometimes because parents know that the values within which we were raised might lead to conflict, that's why they may ban these interreligious marriages, because we believe different things. And I have seen that causing a lot of conflict, even in families, not because any of these people is a bad human being, but because their value systems are different. So communication, structure, and personal variables are things that can be in place, and conflict may or may not develop. Okay, let us move on to stage 2. Stage 2 is about cognition and personalization. We say that cognition has to do with perception. The parties involved must perceive conflict. They must sense a conflict. If no one is aware of a conflict, it's generally agreed that no conflict exists. If we are not feeling it, then if we are not seeing or hearing it, then probably no conflict exists. However, just because conflict is perceived doesn't mean that it is personalized. So there is perception, which has to do with this word cognition, and there is personalization. For example, Amina may be aware that Bosa and Amina are in serious disagreement. Okay? But it may not make Amina tense or anxious, and it may have no effect whatsoever on Amina's affection or actions towards Bosa. Amina knows very well that they have disagreed with Mwami Bosa about Sente za Kameza, the money that Mwami Bosa is supposed to leave at home. They agreed on 10,000, and on this one day she looks at the Kameza and Mr. Bosa has left 5,000. So she knows that there is a serious disagreement, but she doesn't get angry. Someone trained her to be a good wife, and she doesn't get anxious because she understands that maybe today the money is not there. And so she continues to be very affectionate and very respectful towards Mwami, Mr. Bosa. So there is a perceived conflict, but it is not personalized. Amina tabiteka mu feeling. Amina does not carry it to the step of personalizing the issue. Okay, it is only when we move from the perception to feelings. Down here, what we are talking about, felt conflict level, that individuals may become emotionally involved and parties experience anxiety, tension, or hostility. Emotions play a really big role in shaping perception. So felt and perceived conflict are interrelated. There is perceived conflict, yes. The Kameza money is supposed to be 10,000, Mr. Bosa has left 5,000, but maybe Amina, she doesn't let it bother her, she doesn't let it stress her. But if Amina allows it to stress her and put her and make her hostile, then that is felt conflict. Conflict, it keeps on growing. Let us go back to our table for one moment and look at it a bit more closely and see where this felt conflict comes in. Okay. Can you see under stage 2 where we have stage 2, perceived conflict and felt conflict? Here, it is still at the level of, I am seeing, I'm hearing, but I have not yet taken it personal. I'm not yet feeling. I have not yet started acting hostile. All right. So let's move on to stage 3. Stage 3, I have perceived conflict. I'm even personalizing and feeding the conflict. Before I do anything, in my mind, there is this sort of intention that goes through my mind. Intentions are the decisions that we make to act in a certain way. They intervene, the intentions, they intervene between people's perceptions and emotions and their observable behavior. Between what I perceive and what I feel, I have to make a decision to act a certain way. And these intentions are what go through my mind before people actually see what I do. And there are 5 different conflict handling intentions that have been identified. These conflict handling, the 5, they are based on 2 dimensions. Remember in our primary and secondary school mathematics where we had the y-axis and the x-axis? Yes, it is sort of an x-y axis here, where we have cooperativeness on one axis and assertiveness on another axis. Cooperativeness refers to the degree to which one party attempts to satisfy the other party's needs or interests or concerns, to be all about the other person. You put away your needs and you are cooperative, you are attending to the needs of the other party. Assertiveness refers to the degree to which one party attempts to satisfy his or her own needs or concerns. Okay, here, assertiveness, I have my own agenda and I am pushing my own agenda. I know that this might be a little bit different from the other definitions of assertiveness that you had before this course unit. Okay, and that is why it's very important for us to remember that different scholars use terms differently. Remember, we are talking about stage 3, which is about the intentions people have about how they are going to deal with the conflict that they are now feeling. Between feeling and action, there are intentions. So we are talking about 5 possible intentions coming out of 2 axes: cooperativeness and assertiveness. Let's look at a figure that helps us understand this better. Again, it's time for you to take a deep breath and come with me on this journey of trying to understand this figure. I promise you, it is not as complicated as you first think when you first see it. Let's get our little spotlighting tool here and we can use it. So this is the y-axis. We have assertiveness, the extent to which I take care of my own needs or my own views and push my own agenda. You see assertiveness here? And then on the x-axis, we see cooperativeness. Cooperativeness is the extent to which I put aside my own wishes and promote the other party's agenda, because I want to cooperate. I do not want there to be any skirmish. So people can be either uncooperative or cooperative. And on the other axis, if you remember your primary school mathematics, the y-axis, people might be unassertive or assertive. So when assertiveness is high, I am high on pushing my own agenda, and cooperativeness is low, I am very uncooperative. Assertive and uncooperative, we have people that are competing. Their intention is to compete. Okay? When assertiveness is low, I am unassertive. I am not all about pushing my own agenda. But at the same time, I am uncooperative. Cooperativeness is also low. Remember, cooperativeness is how much I want to agree with the other person. So I'm not pushing my agenda. I am not willing to also cooperate. I am uncooperative. My intention for solving this conflict, for dealing with this conflict, is going to be avoiding. We shall look at this again in more detail in the next topic. Okay, it goes on. When assertiveness is high and cooperativeness is in the middle, is 50%, we have compromising. Okay, I really want to push my agenda, but at the same time, I also want to cooperate. So we compromise. You get some things, I also get some things. I let go of some things, you also let go of some things. Then again, assertiveness is high and cooperativeness is high. Okay, you see cooperativeness is high here and assertiveness is also high. Where do they meet? They meet at collaborating. We come together just as the arrows show. Finally, you have assertiveness here is low and cooperativeness is high. We move in the same direction, but we are not really mixing. We are just accommodating each other. So those are the 5 intentions that people might have on how to deal with conflicts. Let's not spend too much time on this. We shall come back to it in the next topic. Okay? 5 intentions based on the degree of people's assertiveness or cooperativeness. And that is the stage 3. Remember here, the outside parties who are observing us have not yet seen anything. We have not yet seen what is happening between Amina and Mr. Bossa. Where we are going to see what happens is in the next step. Stage 4, which is behavior. And the thing is, when most people think about conflict, they go straight to stage 4. They tend to focus on stage 4, the one of behavior, because this is the stage where conflict becomes visible. The behavior stage includes the statements that we make. But you, Mr. Bossa, who do you think? Do you think even tomatoes are expensive? What not? Do you think this money is going to... Or she might just look at the money and say, even that is behavior. And it is actions and reactions. These are the behaviors that are overt. Overt means observable. Each party trying to implement its intentions. Okay? And behaviors have a stimulus quality that is separate from intentions. By stimulus quality, we mean there might be some things that I intend, but maybe because I make the wrong calculation, I might not intend to sound hostile. But because I really don't know how to control my face, I might end up looking hostile. Overt behaviors sometimes deviate from the original intentions. And it helps to think of stage 4 as a dynamic process of interaction because they are actions and reactions. Let's go back to our table for just a minute and see what this looks like, our original table. Okay, do we see? Let me get our highlighter again so that we can follow. Do we see stage 4 here? It has overt conflict, observable conflict. There is this party's behavior. Let's say party A is Amina, and then there is the other party's behavior, Mr. Bossa. So Amina, now this is the behavior. She might, whatever intention there was here, she might look at the money and just say, and then Mr. Bossa also reacts, Nyabo Tegezachi, what do you mean? And then Amina also responds, but Mami Bossa, she's Bambi trying to be the submissive wife, but because her mother probably never taught her properly about submission, or she's too angry to be submissive, she might make a miscalculation. And then the conflict will get worse and worse. Intentions sometimes differ from behavior. Amina may not have intended to sound like she's competing, maybe with her co-wife, I don't know. But because she doesn't know how to place her words, to package her words, she still needs to go to Senga, her auntie, to train her properly. She might sound like she is in that competition. But Mami Bossa, for me, you only leave me with 5,000. How much do you leave the other, my co-wife? Things like that. Okay, so that is stage 4. And we are saying that most people, when they think about conflict, they think about the overt behavior. Let's look at stage 5, which has increased group performance or decreased group performance. These are the outcomes. Okay, so the action and reaction interplay between the conflicting parties results in consequences. Okay, the observable actions that we saw. One person says this, the other one reacts, the other one, so it becomes that cycle. It will have consequences. And these outcomes might be functional or they might be dysfunctional. When we say that something is functional, it means that it is positive. It serves a positive function. It's a benefit. It results in an improvement in the group's performance. If Amina decides to be understanding and accommodating, I understand Mami Bossa did not have a lot of money today. As a team, as a couple, they are going to turn out better. They are going to turn out a better family. She goes ahead to plan, how can I manage that day with 5,000 shillings? When the university tells us to manage internship and teaching, if we are able to work out a way to accommodate each other and actually go on to accommodate the system, we might be able to improve our performance as lecturers and students. Or outcomes may be dysfunctional, meaning they hinder the group's performance. Conflict is constructive when it improves the quality of decisions. Remember earlier when we talked about the benefits of conflict, that is what we are repeating here. Quality of decisions, it stimulates creativity and innovation, problems are aired out, tension is released, and there is some self-evaluation and change. If the conflict between Amina and Mr. Bossa about Kameza money is solved very well, without even shouting at him, Mr. Bossa might be able to self-evaluate. But Amina, no, I'm leaving her 5,000. What is it really going to do? And next time he's going to work harder so that he is able to leave the usual 10,000 or even add more. But if things go wrong and they fight and then it is dysfunctional. There is discontent, the common ties are going to be destroyed, the marriage can be destroyed, there is very poor communication, reduced cohesiveness. Cohesiveness is about sticking together. Yet you swore in sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer, all those things. But when conflict is dysfunctional, it is not managed well, this cohesiveness can be destroyed. And the group's goals can be sacrificed due to infighting between members. You came together, you're trying to raise a good family. But because the conflict has been, at the end of the day, the conflict has been managed very poorly, the outcome might be Amina putting the children aside and saying, Tata wa moyo, eat it. And you see how the children are also being added into the issue. So the goals of raising good children also becomes compromised. Okay, think about it. What other examples can you give as you move from these stages of conflict? If you think about it, you can actually go and track how a conflict can develop from antecedent conditions. Let's look at that table once more. Okay, try to think for yourself about how a conflict can develop from this stage 1, there is potential but no conflict, to stage 2, perceived conflict and felt conflict, to stage 3, we are thinking about it, how do we handle this, that intentions, from thinking about how we handle the actual behavior, maybe because we are not well trained or because we are too emotional, what happens? Do we act like we intended, or do we end up acting differently from we intended? And from what we say or do or even not say, what are the outcomes? It's a very good exercise for you to try and see if you can come up with examples for each of these stages. Otherwise, that is the conflict process. Okay, and like I usually say, you watch these videos, feel free to watch them more than once and write down the questions. And when we meet, we shall answer those questions. Thank you so much for your attention. I am going to stop here for now, and then we shall look at a different topic.